Welcome back to Mac Music Tech. I want to go over something fairly simple today in Pro Tools, but something that can cause difficulties for you if you don't understand what's going on, which are Pro Tools editing modes. If you look in the upper left-hand corner of the Pro Tools edit window, you will see this grid of modes that Pro Tools uses to define how you are selecting, editing, and moving audio within the grid. Let's go through these different modes so you can kind of get a sense for them. But if you're looking for a key command, function 1, 2, function 3, and function 4 will switch you between those four modes. So let's start with spot mode. For the most part in music applications, it's the least useful. What you'll notice is whenever I click on something to move it, I have to enter an actual timecode or bars and beats amount. So this is great if I were putting sound effects in a movie or dropping things that were to specific instances or times, but generally it's not terribly useful in a musical application, with one little exception. You see down in the next to the bottom of this window it says original timestamp. Have you ever accidentally shifted an overdub on something and done a bunch of edits and had to go back and manually put it back into place? It's maddening. One of the nice things about this is almost all DAWs actually record a timestamp along with the audio. So this original one, you'll notice, if I click on original timestamp and click OK, it'll shoot that piece of audio that I had back to the original time that it was recorded at. Great quick way to get something back in time. Let's actually look at slip mode next. This is a really simple mode in that it does nothing to limit things. What you'll notice is I can select freely, I can move freely. I've double-clicked and gotten into spot mode, sorry. I can shift this wherever I want to, so for subtle edits or things where I'm not concerned about timing, it is probably the best mode to actually be in. I use this a lot if I'm doing crossfades and fades because I don't necessarily want those limited to timecode amounts. Grid mode is something that is really useful if you have established a grid. So let's say you've started recording to a metronome, or you've started with MIDI tracks where you've done everything to bars and beats. There are two things that happen in grid mode. First of all, when I'm selecting in grid mode, I'm going to start this in standard grid mode. As I select, you'll notice that it is snapping to these bar values. Whatever you have set here in grid mode is what that selection will be. So if I wanted it to select in half notes instead, now I'm selecting in half measures. If I wanted this to be 30-second notes, you can see that it has changed the grid as I've changed this amount. I'm going to go back to bars to make it a little easier to see. So grid mode will force me to choose and move in amounts that are locked to the grid. Do you see how, in this instance, it immediately snapped me to the beginning of that bar? Then it's going on just bars. Let's say that's not what I wanted to have happen. Let's say that selection has a pickup note on it. I've also got the option of doing what we call relative grid. And what you'll notice, if we assume that's the downbeat, I can actually shift this and it will keep its offset from the bar, but move it exactly whatever my grid amount is forward and back in time. And again, whatever my selections are still going to be limited to that grid. So there's some power to that. Finally, one of the ones that can be the most difficult to understand or can be the most likely to bite you is shuffle mode. Let me break this into a couple of edits so that we can kind of see what's happening here. I'm also going to change the color of this quickly, just so we have a little better visibility on what this is doing. When I'm in shuffle mode, watch what happens when I shift the positioning. It flopped those positions, but it butted things up directly to the thing in front of it. So as I'm flipping those around, I cannot put a gap in there. It forces me to put them edge to edge, and it moves the other pieces around. The other really useful thing is watch what happens when I do an edit in shuffle mode. It automatically closes up the timing of everything after it. Now, beware, if I only had one track selected, this will offset the timing of that track to everything else. But if I had everything selected and I wanted to take a half a bridge out of an entire multi-track song, that's a great way to have it automatically close up. So just real quick to go back over those options. Spot mode, most useful for posting, but that original timecode location, or sometimes called birthday, can be really useful. Slip mode means that I've got no restrictions. I can grab the edge of something. It will not shift how I time anything out. Let me do whatever I want to. Grid mode is going to lock me either to the specific edges of the metrical grid that I've created, or in relative grid only allow me to move things forward by whatever amount I have set up here in the grid. And then finally, shuffle mode, which allows me to quickly do edits and close things up. If I were to have done that in shuffle mode, boom, I would have closed up that gap. So understanding these modes and being able to shift back and forth between them will actually speed up your Pro Tools work quite a bit. So hope this is useful. Please subscribe, and we'll be back with some more valid and useful things for you. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.